Imagine life in a sci-fi movie where everyone in the movie is wearing VR goggles. And they're interacting with their environment and each other, but they're wearing these, they're playing a game. They're in a game world, but they're in their own little world as they walk around. So, maybe one person's living in a fairy realm, and so she has, when she looks at this chair, she sees a stump with ferns growing up it and maybe vines intertwining to make the back or something like that. And someone else might be looking at it, the world in a steampunk world. So maybe the chair's made out of brass and leather and rivets, and it just has a totally different experience. And both of these players in this reality would know that the other player wasn't necessarily in the same world they were. So that when they look at the chair, they would assume that the other person would not be seeing the same thing. And that if they took their goggles off, it would be a completely different chair. So the thing is that we live in an augmented world that only exists for us. But we're more limited than those gamers are because we don't realize that we are seeing something different from everyone else. And no, we don't live in the Matrix or have AI controlling our brains, but we come to every situation with a lifetime of beliefs built up. And we see what we expect. Beliefs literally about everything, and multiple beliefs on each thing. What kind of person drives a truck? You're stopped at a stoplight and there's a truck, a big truck revving next to you. The assumptions that you make about who that person is and what they think. Whether decorating with the color orange feels playful and invigorating, or it feels dated and like your grandmother. Or what somebody with a different skin color is going to act like. Or how successful you will be at learning a new skill. Everything. We make up a constant story that takes place around us. And it's based on our experiences and the beliefs we hold, whether we like them or not. If we spend a lot of time focusing on negative world events or doom scrolling, we begin to believe that people will act in a selfish and uncaring way. We manifest that belief in what we see and experience. Our brains will always find examples that agree with our beliefs. That's why an optimist is often a lot happier than a pessimist. They're both proven right. They see what they expect. So as we live inside this story, we act in ways that complement the narrative. We see the dirty window, or we see the beautiful sunrise beyond it. And more deeply, we find ourselves in situations that reinforce our beliefs. Maybe we think that we're alone in this world, or unsafe, or unlovable. Or situations that remind us that spirit is always with us, that people are kind, and that we are perfect in our imperfection. One belief that keeps coming up in my story is that I'm not techie. I feel much more confident now than I used to. But, sometimes late in the day, I choose to be confused about new tech, and my brain turns off. And this isn't a conscious thing. It's based on my belief that tech is hard and I'm not good at it. The labels that we hold on to were created for some benefit. They kept us safe as children. They gave us an out if we fail. As conscious adults, those beliefs are often not something we want anymore. My story about not being techie began when I was working in Waldorf schools. So grade school families were asked to keep their children off screens so they could develop a natural imagination through physical play. And it felt like wholesome living to shun tech. And I found a sense of pride in my tech ignorance. And it was pretty humorous in the Waldorf teachers' lounge. Someone would come in and need to work, run the printer, and they'd be like, I can't make this printer work. And it was just humorous because we all would just laugh and go, yeah, we don't get it either. We can't do tech either. It was a label that we claimed that made us feel connected to each other, a natural bonding. It made us feel maybe more artistic or pure and superior. And as I moved out of teaching grade school and moved into coaching, the need for me to change my story became essential. And I've become competent with tech. I have, created my whole website. I've created, years of content on videos and how to put them up and all of the work around sending emails and all that stuff. And yet it still comes up sometimes. If there's a new program that I need to learn or an update that changes things. And I just have to remind myself that I am a smart, capable woman and I can learn this. And, it also helps for me if it's early in the day and I take small bites. We are all coated with these limiting labels that, I can't spell, or I'm uncoordinated, or, oh, I can't cook. I can't afford that. Labels that we have carried with us our whole lives. Maybe your music teacher in grade school asked you to not sing so loud, and you've carried with you your entire life that you can't sing. And our worldview is coated with labels as well, that the belief that people will cheat you, or the others, whoever they are selfish and don't care. We put people in a box and we think we know all about them just by who they voted for, or what church they attend, or what vehicle they drive. Even our view of the divine is coated with these limiting labels. That God will punish you for certain behavior. That God isn't active in the world. Or the idea that God would ask something of you against your inner nature. Ernest Holmes uses imagery to help us understand how our paradigms keep us from seeing the real world that Spirit is providing. He says, imagine yourself looking at the picture of a beautiful landscape. In this picture, there are trees, a house, a stream of water, a beautiful meadow, and in the background, mountains and a blue sky dotted with clouds. You look at it long, contemplating its beauty. Now suppose that a colored glass is placed between you and the picture, so that the picture appears blurred. Nothing seems clear. It's all distorted, and yet nothing has happened to the picture. It is your business to remove the colored glass because the picture is still there on the wall and it still may be seen. So luckily, there is a magic tool to help us clear the glass through which we see the world. It's called wonder. Wonder shifts us out of our assumptions that we are making and the story we've been playing. And it opens us up to listening to our inner voice. We change from the energy of projecting what we expect to looking more closely with curiosity. Wonder requires a pause from our normal busyness, and it allows us to see new things and come to different understandings. We're asking to be shown reality, what is there, instead of only seeing what we think should be there. Changing our expectations and shifting us into a creative, solution-based reality. That's when we're able to receive divine wisdom. It gives God a chance to slip in insights because we're open to seeing them. If we're only projecting, we're not welcoming any other story. Einstein said, we cannot solve our problems with the same level of thinking that we used to create them. It's the stories we are telling ourselves that keep us focused in the problems and suffering, or move us into joy and flow. When we are in the mode of, I know how this is going to play out, or I know what to expect, we're not including the divine. When we assume we know, we close off a huge resource. When we get curious and receptively connect to the divine, we have access to wisdom and resources way beyond our individual self. Wonder will help shift us from our head to our hearts. When we are in a state of noticing more, we automatically slip into gratitude. We are excited and revitalized by what is around us. We can begin to shift out of this tragic fairy tale we might be living in and into one of magic and wonder. The invariable mark of wisdom is to see the miraculous in the common, says Emerson. When we look at our world with wonder and curiosity, we open ourselves to inspiration and the flow of creative energy the universe is waiting for us to draw upon. Jesus said in Matthew, unless you turn and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. So think of a child, how open they are. They're just experiencing everything. There's no projecting how things are supposed to be because everything is new. They're open to possibilities and awe. They're trusting and curious. I got to deliver books. My Rotary Club, our big fundraisers work towards this, and we give each kindergarten through second grade child in our school district a book. So we deliver them before Thanksgiving, and then this year we're going to give them 2 books, and we're going to deliver them before spring break too. But we delivered them this last week, and it was so fun to go into the school. We got to, go to the library and set up tables of books, and each class would come in, and they would get to look through the books and pick out a book. And the ease at which it was to make friends with these children just through a smile, through eye contact. Some of the kids that I just interacted with in that way were, excitedly waving goodbye when they left the room, like we had become best friends. The power of wonder is that it brings us into conscious creation with the divine. And living in that state of co-creation, we enter the kingdom of heaven. Heaven is not some other place, but a deeper awareness of our connection. It's a different state of mind. And we've all had those moments where we've, briefly felt that. I call them amazing grace moments, where you feel overwhelmed by awe and love and a sense of connection to something much bigger than yourself. We get a peek into heaven. And it's at these moments that we are filled with gratitude. We realize that we are not on our own, that we have support and a creative partner. And this kind of gratitude goes beyond the I'm thankful for at the Thanksgiving table. This gratitude wells up from deep inside us, beginning at our heart and taking over our whole body. It's gratitude for life itself, no matter the situation we find ourselves in. And it's been scientifically proven that we literally vibrate at a different frequency. When we're in that state, you can feel your whole body is different. When we're in this state, we are able to use our co-creative abilities more fully. And staying in that state of wonder can be tiring if we're not used to it. And Zen Buddhists have a practice which also embraces being curious and open like a child. It's called the beginner's mind. So people who have put on the beginner's mind can learn from anyone, no matter the teacher. They get their ego out of the way and stop projecting their expectations. Even a master can put on a beginner's mind because we never can know everything. And with a beginner's mind, we are expecting to learn something. And every situation brings new insights. We're open to being shown. I see the energy of wonder as going out and looking closer with a sense of curiosity. And the practice of the beginner's mind as sitting back and receiving. So both are not projecting their ideas on the world, but bring us to the present moment and a truer reality. We had a young woman staying with us for the last 4 months who is a practicing Zen Buddhist and often holds that beginner's mind. She is observant. I was teaching her the other day how to start a fire in our wood stove. And she, took in my comments and examples, and she didn't take my corrections. I mean, I had her doing it. She didn't take my corrections personally. She didn't think bad of herself for not knowing or try to show me all that she knew about how to light a fire, which is something that I struggle with. She had a beginner's mind. And I've been trying to put on that beginner's mind. I got to practice last weekend. I hosted an herbal medicine class, and I was a little worried. I was going to have trouble keeping that beginner's mind. And I know a lot about plants and herbal medicine. I've studied both. I have a minor in botany, and it was my forest after all. So I'm happy to say that I did a really good job at staying in that beginner's mind. And I learned so much about my forest and the medicine growing there. And I did get to share some of my knowledge about the things in the forest. And one marker that I found of success for me is that I was able to answer questions that I didn't know the answer. So I have my personality likes to be seen as someone who knows what they're talking about. And it's sort of the opposite of the beginner's mind, that I am the instructor's mind. And it takes a lot for me to step into that beginner and to, if I don't know the answer, if I know the answer in a thing, I'm sure I can raise my hand and will answer. But if I don't know the answer, I just stay quiet. And I stepped out of my comfort zone, and I answered questions that I didn't know, like why do you think this is growing here, or but I could guess. And when I was able to do that, be willing to be a beginner, I could get clear instruction. If I didn't know, I could say, well, how do you process this? Or how does that work? Or, what's the difference between these two? When we get into that I know this mindset, or we try to impress people with our knowledge, we limit what we're able to see and we miss stuff we don't know. I like to watch instructional YouTube videos, but I can get into that I know this mindset and tune out or skip sections. One of the people that I really like is a cook, and her channel's called Mary's Nest. And I've gotten a lot of great recipes from her. And she has very long videos. They're about half an hour. And she teaches at a very, very basic level. So if you knew nothing about any of these processes, it'd be great, because you'd be like, oh, I need to let my water sit out overnight so there's no chlorine in it, or I need to put salt in the water so that it changes the chemistry, or whatever, right? But I find myself getting into the skipping mode. I start to skip sections, and two things happen when I do that. The first is that I miss the little brief comments that are interspersed in the videos that I might not know, or that might be helpful. Like maybe she's filling the water, but then while she's filling the water, she talks about something that I wouldn't know. But it was brief and it's not part of that aspect, so I miss it. But the other thing that I think is actually even more important is that I put my brain into move through this quickly mode. I'm not receptive. I'm not open to learning. My brain is tasked with searching for what I know so that I can skip it, instead of looking for what I can learn with the expectation of finding it. I'm not in learning mode. I'm in skipping mode, and it's a different energy. I find it the same to be true when I'm writing and editing. So if I'm writing, it's that creative kind of, I'm taking my ideas and I'm figuring out how I want to word them. Or I'm in editing mode and I'm nitpicking how the spelling is and if this grammar is properly done. It's a very different type of focus, and it's hard to switch back and forth. And I think that this behavior is often in our larger life as well. As we project our beliefs onto the story of the world, we miss the small, insightful things that are happening all around us. Jane Goodall shared a story in her famous Last Words interview. She said she was in the Denver airport, and there was a pair of sparrows, and they were courting, and the female was fluttering her wings and opening her mouth and to be fed. And the male was trying to there had been some crumbs on the floor. And so the male would fly down and try to get a crumb. And as soon as he would get close, someone would walk by on their phone and not even notice what they were doing, and he would be scared away. And time after time he tried. Finally, he got the crumb and he got it up to his lady love, and it was a beautiful story. And she said, people don't notice. And I'm shocked, because nature is always filled with things to look at. The world is a place full of surprises. We can learn something at any moment. Being in a body is such a privilege. We get to use our senses to explore the world. Yet we experience this world through the filter of all our beliefs and expectations. We project our story onto everything we encounter, like wearing VR goggles wherever we go, giving us a view we think is reality, but isn't. Approaching the world with wonder and curiosity brings us into the present moment. We see more clearly what's around us and are excited and revitalized. With a beginner's mind, we know that there is always something that we can gain from every experience. as we shift into this enlivened state, we feel gratitude well up from within us. And it's at this vibration that we can access the creative power of the divine that's always available. There's always something miraculous around us, even in our habit-filled lives, if we bother to look for it. Blessings.